live stream and YouTube.
Well, it looks like we're live. Good evening, good morning, and good day to wherever you may be. And welcome to everybody in the Zoom room. And a big welcome to Terry, our teacher.
How's it going, Ronald?
I'm going well. How are you? Scotty said
Glad
he'll
the day's
be
over.
either listening or watching in as he's working tonight.
Who is?
He said he'll be watching. Scotty.
Yep. Oh, okay. Well, hello, Scotty. We miss you.
Yep, most definitely. And tonight we're doing verse 18, aren't we?
Yes, we're going to be covering Genesis chapter 2, verse 18.
Terrific. We've got Chrissy in the Zoom room with us. We've got Bob, Veronica, Joanna, Ernestine from Virginia, and Linda from Australia is just popping in right now. So if you anything to say, Terry, before we start?
No, just I think everything's been going pretty good. You seen anything or heard anything from the last couple of classes? Anybody email you?
No, just those ones I emailed you yesterday for the future Q&A.
All righty. Yeah, I've started me a file on those.
Right.
Okay, tonight, again, like Ronald said, welcome everyone from all over the planet. We've got good, I like how you did that, Ronald. Good morning, good evening, good night. It covers it all. Covers it all. I'm in evening time here in Southeast Tennessee, and so we're glad to have everyone here with us. It's continued on with us with our new program. We got Mr. Scotty has had to step aside for a while to take care of some really good business stuff that he's been getting into and helping someone out. And he's Mr. Sadaka anyhow, so he'll probably be back from time to time, give us some classes on Sadaka, because if anybody knows anything about Sadaka charity, he's the guy to go to, and he's an ace prime example in real life where the rubber meets the road. In that plenty of stories to tell that's happened over the last several years of things and opportunities that's come our way and his way to help out. And that's one thing we do, and we talk about, we do live, by a set of laws, and I'm going to cover a little bit of that one here in just a minute. But the big thing that we do is, like this one rabbi said, when you really look at the Torah and the prophets, there is a lot of stuff said about taking care of those that are, that need, the widow and the orphan and the homeless and people who, is having a hard time taking care of themselves or can't take care of themselves. The Torah and the prophets and the writings are full of messages and stories of where humanity shines is when it helps those who needs help. And that's one of the things we'll talk about from time to time. But tonight we're going to continue on in our journey of Genesis, as I've called it. We're just going to be looking at the one verse tonight. But before we get started, I was going through some stuff this week and kind of reminded me of a few things that we've covered before. And I wanted to read this from Rabbi Hirsch's his own commentary on Perkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers. It's one of the sacred writings of Israel, and it just gives the lineage of things as being said, different rabbis, different things from the time of Mount Sinai forward. And Rabbi Akiva was one of the great rabbis of Israel. I've got his life story here, and his wife's as well. Is an amazing story of his life. At 40 years old, he couldn't read or write Hebrew language of his own native tongue. And over a period of time, he married this lady who he was a hand, basically a farm hand, to this wealthy man that had land and animals, and he was like what we today we call a farm hand. And his daughter saw something in him, and she wanted to marry him, and basically because of that, he kicked her out and him out, because he was just a farmhand. And he was wealthy people marry other wealthy people. It's just the way it is, has been throughout the history. But it turned out to be that she saw something in him, and he became an amazing Torah teacher. I think at one time he had over 30,000 students that he accredited his wife for those. And he's an amazing man. So this here in what they call the Mishnah section here of Perkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, he said Rabbi Akiva used to say, and this is tying into what we're going to talk to with tonight, but what we've been talking about, especially in Genesis 2:16 and some other passages in 126 and things in the past few weeks and months. But it said Rabbi Akiva used to say, this is in chapter 3 of Pirkei Avos, and it says he used to say privileged. Now think of the wording of this. Privileged is man, for he was created in his image, God's image. But it was an act of special favor that it was made known to him that he was created in his image. As it is said, for the image of God did he create man. So I haven't, I don't know if I've ever really thought about, I've talked about being created in the image of man, the dignity of man, because he isn't the creator of God. And he's created in the image of God. But I don't think I've ever considered it a privilege or a favor that I had known that. I don't think my thoughts had went that far. And so Rabbi Hirsch, he talks a little bit about this in his discussion of this short little passage. He says, the Mishnah here enumerates the privileges of which man was found worthy as distinguished from other creatures. Man was favored by having been created in the image of God. This in itself would be a wondrous gift, even if man would not be aware of it at all. For by virtue of the godly qualities that which he was thus endowed at the time of his creation, he would do much that is morally and spiritually good, even though he would not have been aware that by conducting himself that he was merely demonstrating his resemblance to God. I want you to think about this, because we really see some of this when we get into this next passage and what we were talking about in verses 16 and 17 and now 18. It says, by conducting himself in morality, he was demonstrating his resemblance to God. So when we think about this, so now when we see a lot of this stuff going on in the world that is so immoral, a lot of humanity is no longer resembling God. It's through our morality we resemble him. So if we don't have morality, then we're not resembling God, in which we were the image we were created. He goes on and says, but this special divine favor attained its full worth only by virtue of the fact that man was taught explicitly that his dignity and nobleness, which rise him above other creatures, and his destiny, which guides him toward God, is moral and spiritual perfection, are based on his having been created in the image of God. I read that the other night, and I wanted to share that tonight because it kind of kicks in a little bit with what we're talking about. And last 2 weeks as we discussed chapter 16, we saw and we heard and we learned that the sages of Israel says that verse 16 and 17 is the beginning of man's moral training. Okay. And then we also saw in the underlying aspect of verse 16, in the wording of verse 16 and 17, we find that the 7 universal commands of mankind is derived from the wording, and we went through that. So if you wasn't able to be here, you go to our YouTube channel there at Outreach Noah in the last 2 weeks of part 18 and part 18b. We discussed those 2 passages. And in a message this week that I was listening to, I really liked how this rabbi put that, since we just did come through discussing the issue of the morality and the laws and how all they are connected together with morality in our last couple of classes. He made a very, very interesting point. I wrote this down, and I might even type this out and make me a little placard of it for myself. I love how he says the 7 laws, which we talked about last week, in which we talk, we've actually done classes on each individual one. We're going to do that again as well to go through them. But the 7 universal laws that was given to Adam down through Noah, and Noah gained the deeper message of the one law on ever mean hide, the only dietary law we have, not eat meat taken from a living animal. That's explained in more detail in Genesis chapter 9 when we get to there. But the 7 laws is our moral identity. And the 7 laws that's given here in Genesis are the boundary lines of civilization. They're our moral identity and the boundary lines of civilization. And so this week it's interesting, things that I've come across and listened to and studied myself. It's been tying back into what we've been covering. I wasn't going looking for that, but the message of morality. Another young lady's got a real good video out there called basically morality versus religion, and I listened to that today at lunch, and that was really, really, really good. And she made a statement that is really bold. She's saying the world isn't falling apart because people aren't religious or connected to religion. People are leaving religions all the time, but that's not what's causing the downfall of our society. What's causing the downfall of our society is people leaving morality. And morality is a major issue here in Genesis that we learn from. I mean, it's the main things. Well, God starts our education out as a created being, created in His image. In verse 18 is we're going to get into here. Again, I'm using the Hirsch Chumash of Rabbi Samson R. Hirsch. He, in verse 18, chapter 2, Genesis, God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make a help meet for him." Before man was created, creation came to a temporary standstill as God announced that the crown of creation was about to appear. That's when we were discussing Genesis chapter 1:26. You can go back into our videos and see when we were in chapter 1. It says, this was the case now also, before the creation of woman. Tonight we're going to learn the very important role of the woman for herself, for creation, for man. You've not gonna, if you've never heard it taught from the Torah perspective of a woman, but only through some other religions that downplay the woman, you're going to learn God's view and God's plan for creation, because she was a very, very important aspect of the creation. Without her, man cannot do, and we're going to see this, man cannot complete his duty as Adam without her. So this is now the case also. Creation has come to a standstill for the creation of woman. Man was already there amidst the beauty of paradise in full bloom, but yet God has not yet said tov, or good. The scripture does not say, I love it's how Rabbi Hirsch does sometimes. He'll say, this is not what the scripture is saying, because sometimes when we read something, we go, oh, that's what it says. And he'll start, no, this is not what it's saying, but this is what it's saying. Rabbi Hirsch says this scripture, verse 8 here, does not say it is not good for man to be alone, but rather it says, this is not good, seeing that man is alone. Just think about that. It's not saying that it's not good for man to be alone. It is saying this is not good, seeing that man is alone. As long as man is alone, the world is still without good. The goal of perfection, which the terrestrial world is to attain through man, cannot be attained in full as long as man is alone. That's a tall drink of water, as we would say down here in the South. The completion of the good was not man. The completion of the good, he goes, wait a minute, it says the completion of the good was not man, but woman. The completion of the good was not man, but woman. Only when woman was created was the good completed. For man and for the entire world. He goes on, he says, our Torah teachers teach us only by the virtue of his wife is a man called an Adam. Remember, I've talked about that in the last couple of weeks, is Adam is a species, not a name, not a proper noun name. It's his species. It's a species. And so man is, by his virtue of his wife, is now called Adam. Only husband and wife together are called Adam. The task is too great for either to perform alone, and must therefore be shared together by each other. Hence, woman was added to man so that together they should fully accomplish the purpose of Adam. The woman is to be called his, in Hebrew here is Azer. And I can't pronounce the last part. It starts with a cuff. It's Azer. I better not try that out. That sounds like I'm speaking in tongues. Oh, I get messed up with the cuff for some reason because the cuff has a couple ways it's pronounced, and so it's been a while. But the Azer, the helpmate, the second word there in the Hebrew is opposite. It's the word opposite. She is to be a helper opposite of him. That's the translation of the Hebrew. Helper opposite of him. It says, even the superficial glance of this Hebrew uh, and what this term expresses is the true dignity of a woman. It does not carry any implication of sexual relationship. This word that God uses when he says, I'm a helpmeet I'm going to make for him, a helper that is opposite of him, because they don't for some reason English doesn't translate the word there that means like opposite of him. It can also mean opposer, but there, we'll see that here in just a minute. But the woman was placed into a sphere of man's activities. There she is needed. There she is to be a helper that is opposite of him. It does not imply that the woman is to be subordinate to man. Actually, it connotes complete equality and equal independence. A woman is at man's side, parallel to him on one line. And that's what the other word means, that's opposite there means. He is, that she is to his side, parallel to him on one line. Before I go further in this section, he references, I have his what's called his completed writings, stuff that has a lot more detail in it than what he covers in his Chumash, and so he'll drop a note in here in where to go. In volume 8, I believe it's volume 8. Yeah, volume 8, page 89 of his completed writings. He says, let me see. Pick up, yeah. Initially, the Word of God in Genesis 1:27 introduces man and woman together into the work of creation as human beings, both of them created equally in the image of God and designated as his representatives on earth. The man and the woman are to be the representative of God on earth, reflecting his image. Their position and tasks being assigned to both of them together. He goes on, he says, a subsequent scripture is chapter 2, verse 18, which is what we're covering tonight. Clearly makes the point of addressing itself particularly to the relationship between a man and his wife in order to impress upon the man the paramount value and significance of his wife for every aspect of his own personality and for the fulfillment of his vocation and his life purpose. You'll let Bobby in. All right. Comes Mr. Bob P. So, as we get into this passage that we are talking about tonight, we see that what he's talking about, this begins to clearly designate the significance and the purpose of the woman in connection with her husband. It says, as the subduer of the earth. Remember, we covered that a few verses back when it says that, when God gave them the command to, to multiply in the field and subdue the earth. It says, as the subduer of the earth and the winner of the material means enables him to marry and to establish a home, the man could easily come to view himself as the only real indispensable factor on the earth, and under the spell of his illusion, to act toward his wife in an overbearing manner. Boy, now we see that a lot, especially in some other religions that downplay the woman, put her in her place. That's because the man has grown where he thinks more of himself than what he is. Kind of like that. There's an old Jewish proverb that says, why did God create the gnat? So when man would get full of himself, he would know that the gnat was created before him. I've always thought that was funny. I read that years ago. I've never forgotten it. I'm like, how true that is. When man gets puffed up, he just needs to take a look at a gnat and saying, God thought of him for you. He made you first. Anyhow, it says that the man will become will act toward his wife in overbearing manner. He says, it seems that precisely for this reason, the word of God seeks to make man aware of how helpless and how joyless he would be without his wife, even in the midst of paradise. No matter what his own strength and insight, and that only his wife can give him the support he needs to make him whole. He goes on and said, it is not good that man should be alone, Genesis 2:18. Man's purpose could never be adequately fulfilled by an individual acting alone. The momentous task that God has set before human beings is too great for any one person to carry upon his shoulders. It is required that a collaboration of two human beings who share the labor and complete it by completing one another. I wish to create for him a helper that stands opposite of him, a fitting helper. It denotes a kind of help that by taking over a portion of the partner's share of the work to be done enables that the partner to concentrate on his own energies on the work specifically assigned for him. In this manner, each of the two partners enables the other to accomplish the aspects of work specifically entrusted to him. As a result, it becomes possible for both partners together to accomplish the sum of the total work. This is the division of labor, pure and simple, that God divides the certain labors between the man and the woman to complete the task of Adam on the earth. Now, if both partners, each in his own sphere of activity, are to achieve total satisfaction in their joint endeavors and are to make best use of their personal energies and potential, this ensuring the consummate accomplishment of that endeavor, then their division of labor presupposes that each of the two partners should be different from one another in strength and in potential. However, if at the same time the two of them should be bound together by such strong bonds of solidarity that they will complement one another And the weakness of the one partner will be completed by the strength of the other. The weakness of the one partner will be completed by the strength of the other. This thought is expressed most significantly by the opposition, the helpmate that stands opposite. Assigned to one subject as a position which is different from that of the other, but which nonetheless is determined by the other's position. For it clearly places the woman on the same level as man, while at the same time giving each a distinct position of creation and endeavor. The male cannot assume the position of the female. Conversely, the female cannot occupy and hold the position of a male. But both of them are stationed and working on an equal level, working hand in hand. Therefore, their functions interlock, as it were, with each doing his or her own share of the tasks that both must be accomplished together as human beings. It says, also note, Rabbi Hirsch says that this division of labor between male and female was not a matter of convenience or accident. From the very outset, the female was created as opposite in such a manner that she could complete the work of the male. Man and woman were fashioned for each other, and both of them together were created for one another the same purpose. The man regards his wife as part of his own being, but at the same time as a creature distinct from himself. For she is called Isha, because she was taken from Ish. She belongs to him. It is she that makes him whole. Without her, his existence is only a half-life. For this reason, a man must leave his father and his mother and cling unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And Rabbi Hirsch concludes here. He says, here then we have the profound significance of marriage as an institution established by God. And when we see that the differences between what God did in making a woman a helpmate that stands opposite of him, and he's given them, when one weakness is fulfilled through the other's strength, and that goes both ways. Where the man is weak, the wife's strength completes him, and where the wife is weak, the husband's strength completes her. This is why same-sex marriages don't work. Because they were not created to be together of the same sex. And it's not just because of the reproductive sex issue. It's how God created them to become helpers of each other. And when you've got two that is created the same, it's just like a magnet with trying to push two that two north sides together, they're going to repel. But when you bring one that's opposite of the other, they're going to attract. And that's nature. That is natural science. That's why that system fails. That's why those people are truly unhappy. It never works because it was never designed to. And it has nothing to do with it being on a sexual issue. It has everything what God created in the soul of that person and the assignment he assigns that soul on the earth. And so this passage is not only talking about, the glory of the woman, because man is only a half-life without her. But we also learn the moral principle that if you take two men and put them together, you take two women and put them together and try to marry them, it goes against everything in nature, the way God created the not only the flesh, but the soul of that person and the mind of that person. And that's the reason why it fails. And what God created, it will not sustain. Earth would dry up and die. If that became the norm, or the humanity would dry up and die, because it's just not, the society is not designed by God to operate in that fashion. He goes on and he says in the Azer, its root is related to another Hebrew word that denotes the concept of limitation. It relieves his friend of a part of his obligation, enabling him to concentrate his energies in more limited sphere so that he can fulfill the remaining obligations more effectively. The Azer is to help. Not Azer, but yeah, Azer. Azer. Is to help by the way of concentration. Whereas it denotes a limitation by force. And it denotes a limitation that is welcomed. One who receives can exercise greater power in the restricted sphere of remaining that is remaining to him. Meaning that this, a true marriage, they can have conflicts. Well, biggest part of our conflicts today is because the man and the woman does today in the average home doesn't know their God-given role as a man and a woman. And they've been taught by society and false religions of the roles of each of a man or a woman that is not Torah based. And therefore that's the reason why we have so much trouble. But even in a Torah-based home, there might appear to be conflict, but it's a conflict between the husband and wife that is natural, that is supposed to be there. One of my favorite shows, it's a Jewish show. It's based on the Feast of Sukkot or the Feast of Tabernacles. It's called Ushpasin. And it's one of my favorites. And there's parts of it I sit and I cry. And the man that is playing this, he's a Breslov Jew, and he's not only a famous actor in Israel, he's also a singer, an amazing singer. But he's very, very strict in his morals, that when they asked him to play this role in that movie, he wanted his wife to be his wife in the movie. And they said, well, she's not an actor. He says, well, then I'm not doing this. So when you see the movie, the woman that's in the movie is his wife. And there's a scene in there where they're renting an apartment. Things have gotten hard, and he's telling her, he's gone to the rabbi and he's talked to him about, because things have gotten financially hard and all this. And the rabbi gives him some advice. And he came back home, and they're sitting at the table and they're talking about it. And he's trying to tell her, what he was instructed. And she stops him from what he says, you need to go do what he told you. Like it was about praying and stuff. I mean, she just stops him like dead sentence, being that opposite. Well, you need to go, what you need to do. Now go do it. Quit sitting here and talking about it, and go and do it. And so you really get this picture of a beautiful Torah marriage in this movie, and the things that goes on, and it's wonderful. Because then you see Scripture come alive, because they're living the life the way God created a husband and wife. And here they're they're going through some financial struggles, and the guy's knocking on the door for the rent, and he's sitting there, well, I've been talking to my rabbi, and then she says, well, quit talking about it and go do what he said. And he was trying to get her to, I don't want to lean on your shoulder a little bit. No, you're not. And so she was opposite of him at that time. And that's what the wife is supposed to be for. I mean, yeah, I don't like it sometimes, but I mean, I've got one of them godly women that lets me know when I need to do certain things. And it's not, and because I've learned this, I've learned to take my wife in the way she thinks as a woman. I've learned a lot in this path of learning Torah, and I see God in her that is amazing. I'm reading a book from Rabbi Hirsch right now. In English, it's on trust, bitachon, in Hebrew, which means a lot more. And I'm at a part that I had to stop because of it was talking about how God moves in a person who has this trust in Him that it's kind of hard to explain. And I was sitting here the other morning, and my wife has that. She's had it for a long time. And there's things in her job. We both work at the same place, but different departments. And when she's needing something, she'll just sit and ask God for it, and it happens all the time. And if something happens and it's negative, oh, that's not what God wanted me to have. He'll give me what I need. What I need. And she lives, I see it every day. She lives by that. And by learning the role of the woman and the morality and the place in the family and a place as her being my wife, I think I've seen God in more in her than I have, and like other people, because I know I live with her. But I see things that I'm reading and I'm studying, and I have to stop and think about who God gave me as my wife. We were married 30, would be married 39 years this coming May. Wouldn't take nothing for it. And Torah has helped me. If we were just the average family that didn't have the God of Israel in our life and understanding our roles as in humanity that God had made us, we probably would have been in fights and divorced a long time ago. Instead of me, I wouldn't have been seeing God in her and how He made her. I would have just thought you just irritating me, and we would have gotten in fights like a lot of families do, or husband and wives do. But instead, even in our rough times, sometimes I'll stop and I'm like, I'll tell God, yes, sir. Okay, I see. And the Torah marriage that is laid out here in Genesis, that it's not good for man that he should be alone. As Rabbi Hirsch said, it's not saying that it's not good for man to be alone, but it says it's not good seeing man is alone. We as men, matter of fact, within Israel, a man is not even considered fully a man until he's married. He's considered half a man, and that's what Rabbi Hirsch just said here a little bit ago. He's only living a half life. And if the men that is hearing my voice learn what God created in the woman that is your wife, and learn what God did for you, and come together and stand as husband and wife before God is the way God created each of us. Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, in the case of man and woman, the woman assumes part of the obligations that comprise the prodigious task of mankind, enabling the man to fulfill the remaining obligations more completely. But this is possible only if the helper stands opposite of him. The helper should not work with him in one place, but should work opposite of him in different place in the same time. Had the helper been formed in the image of a man, all the obligations of the man would have devolved upon him, and he too would have needed a helper. Hence, the helper was formed as an Isha, a woman, who stands beside him, not with him or below him. She works at another point in the same line. Each one is to work in his own and his and her special sphere. Thus, they will complete each other. This is the purpose of the God creating the woman. She's not below him. She's not necessarily with him, but she's standing opposite of him on the same line. There to pick up where he needs it picked up so he can complete his role as he's been made. All right, Ronald. How's it going? Any questions based on what we covered tonight, guys?
Sorry, I was still muted when I spoke.
Sorry.
But it didn't hit. No, there's no questions so far. But that's a real intensive look at
I wanted to cover this
understanding
passage.
what a couple is.
I wanted to cover this passage by itself because I just didn't think covering what this passage covers would have went well together. That God herded together all of the ground animals. This is a job part. That this really verse 16, 17, and 18 really go together in the creation of man, woman, each of their purpose, the moral training that God has set forth in these passages, the morality that He has set forth for His creation can be found in these passages, and it's just so important that we learn who we are as human beings, male and female. And also, those of us that are married really know who our wife is. She's not someone to tell to be quiet, get in her corner, wash the dishes, do this, do that, as other cultures like our own has done in the past to berate a woman. But the woman, and I love it. Share a little bit of information. You know who's the most spiritual of the man and the woman?
Yes, the woman.
The woman is the most spiritual.
And that was shown through
man was
Sarah.
created. Yeah, man was created outside of the garden and brought in, and the woman was created inside the garden. And therefore, her spiritual level was already at a higher level than man's, because he had to be brought in. Whereas in the spiritual aspect of the Garden of Eden, she was born within that environment. Not born, but created in that environment. And so that's why, you see a lot of, in other religions, you see a lot of times it's the woman that seems to be the one that's being the more spiritual of the couple. But that's a natural tendency for the woman. The man wants, to be out playing golf, fishing, or whatever like that. And the woman's, at a Bible study somewhere, it just seems to be the way it goes. But that's the natural tendency, though, of humanity. Like Veronica said, and most teachers are, and being a teacher is also one of the responsibilities that God put on a man too. It's especially within Israel when you look at there's certain things, especially within Israel, it takes the man to be the teacher because of there's some holiness issues there that's different between the man and the woman as far as ritual issues. We don't have those issues in the nations. We don't have the same issues there. But not to say that women can't be. So no, there's some great women teachers out there. There's some great women teachers out there on both sides of the fence within Israel and also outside. I find like in like your school and your schools and stuff, and especially your grade schools, it seems like you have more women that are in your lower grade schools and things like that, and then you do have some professors. But I know for me, one of the best teachers I ever had was in the eighth grade, Miss Ennis. Man, I couldn't get fractions. I couldn't do fractions right now if I wanted to, but at that time I couldn't understand them. And she took her time with me and she helped me. And by the end of my eighth grade year, I could take and work fractions that would go all the way across the board, multiple lines. Now I couldn't get past 2 plus 2 because I don't use it every day in my life. But at that time, she was one of my favorite teachers. And then I had an English teacher in high school that opened up the world of literature to me. That actually literally changed my life, because how she taught me to read and learn literature and poetry in my junior high school English class at that time opened my mind to looking at the Bible that way. And I began reading the Bible the same way, of trying to find out what the author is saying. And to her as a woman, she opened my life to literature and the depthness of the written word, and it was beautiful meaning. So, yeah, most men are teachers in religion. Most men are teachers. It's interesting.
The women
And
nurture.
then women nurture,
as you've just stated with those two school teachers.
Yeah, they nurture. That's a great word. Yeah, Ronald, that's a great way of putting it. They nurture. They can take what a man teaches and then they add their nourishment to it, and it makes it more living instead of just knowledge. So, if anything, I hope out of this class, people, that y'all get the very importance of the woman. Christy, is your hand up, or are you swatting a fly?
It's not. It's spoon. We've all got to put our spoon up in our other meetings,
Oh, that's a cool idea.
I don't have one. I use the inbuilt Zoom. Raise your hand, or I just talk over them and stop them.
What you got, Christy?
I just recalling my mother when I was young and growing up and got married. She always reminded me that how the man or the husband, or the man how the men in the house left the house was a reflection on the woman of the house. So that's why you iron everything, you press seam, straight seams, got to be perfect. You starch their collars, you do this, do that. And I sometimes wish my mother had never told me that, because I still think of that. Now I've got, I was thinking of it the other day because my grandson's moved in with us now, which I just, he's the oldest grandson. So it's just lovely having him. And he radios and trains horses. And so you can imagine how many pairs of Wranglers and Levi's I have to wash and iron. And I was sitting there pressing them and starching them, and all I could hear in my ear was my mother say, I'm thinking, oh, do I need to keep doing this? And all I could hear was Mum saying, how he leaves your house is a reflection on you. So,
wow.
But it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it could be taken further than that, because if a man leaves the house happy, then that's a reflection on the wife, isn't it? You know,
That's really a great, awesome point.
isn't it?
The way a man leaves his house and goes out into the world,
yeah,
how is he radiating his wife?
that's right. Exactly. And he used to sort of grab the spiritual side of that, or the emotional side of that, as opposed to, you know, making sure the creases were straight. My mother taught me to iron. I used to have to kneel on a chair, and the old irons in those days, and the creases had to be knife-like, and they had to extend from the inner side of the first keeper right down to the middle of the cuff or whatever it was. And I've never forgotten that. She said, you iron like a tailor irons, and it makes the man look good. So there's my piece of wisdom.
That was great. Great wisdom. So tomorrow, if I leave grumpy, I can blame my wife. I might get a frying pan upon my head if I.
Don't push your luck.
That reminds me of my mom and dad telling me about the old 3D black and white Ma and Pa kettles. When Ma would throw the pot at him and said, "You'd be ducking," you know, that's 3D was a big thing, you know, back in the 50s.
Yeah. I've just seen the vet pull in the driveway. Yep.
We're at the 9 o'clock hour, Ronald.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, nothing's come through. I'll check the emails after the show and forward anything to you if it's there.
Okay. And we want to greet also, or as we close, greet those that will be listening to this on Power Faith Radio, because we send Scotty the audio version and he puts it on his radio station there on Power Faith Radio. So if you want to just be able to listen to it, I don't have the link for it, but it's just called Power Faith Radio. You can type that in, and Scotty has multiple teachings and things like that on his radio station, and he's also airing these later after Ronald gets them to him.
Yeah, it's going to be a few minutes short at the start.
Okay, not a problem.
I forgot to hit the record. Oh well, maybe next week I'll get it all down, Pat. Because it threw to the other monitor. When I opened up the link to stream, it left this monitor and jumped onto the other one, so it just threw me. And I went over there, and I didn't remember to hit the record button.
Well, we're still learning and growing with the new platform, and because we're using the YouTube channel and everything, and getting all the connections made right, it's going to take a few weeks, get the bugs worked out. Just glad everyone is hanging in there with us.
Yeah, really appreciate you being here.
Next week, God willing, we'll get into verse 19 and 20, I think. Let me look at that real quick. 19 and 20. Yeah, probably do 19 and 20 next week, or maybe even a little bit more. Depends when we get into that, or any questions that we might have. And if you have any questions or any comments for our, toward what we've been discussing in our classes, you can contact us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. And on our YouTube channel, we'll have it's already posted at the end of class, but I go in and do the few adjustments on the backside and add the picture and all of that to it. Put the description in, but you're welcome to leave any questions as well on the YouTube channel as well, or in our Simple Walk Facebook group and Noahides of Australia New Zealand.
Yeah,
that Facebook group as well.
I contacted Dan Barwell, and I'm going to advertise the Zoom meeting on International Noahide Network, one of his Facebook pages as well.
Okay. And of course, Bob has a class on Tuesday nights. Is that open or closed class, Bob?
It is open. I like to call it a study group rather than a class.
That's what I've changed mine to, a study, because that's really what it is. It's more of a study. They do some book studies and things like that too on Tuesday nights.
It'd be more like your Thursday, where it's a book club, a Divine Code
Yeah, it's
book
more.
club.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, Veronica's and Bob's both got a little book club thing that they do. Bob's on Thursday night or Tuesday nights, and Veronica's is every other Thursday.
That'll be this week, won't it, Veronica?
Should be.
Yeah.
All righty, if that's it, guys, we'll close out our study for tonight and look forward to next week.
Yes. And same time, same channel. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you for the